Hello, everyone. This is ANC 1C's general meeting, March the 2nd, 7 p.m. We have, okay, there we go. We have, can we count? 6 commissioners. We need 5 for a quorum, so we have a quorum. So welcome to the ANC meeting. Our Commissioner Carano is joining us a little later, so let's begin with introductions, please, if we can go around the neighborhood. Commissioner Bollick, if you could please introduce yourself and your your SMD.
Sure. I'm District 01 in the far southwest corner of Adams Morgan. I like to say we're all the way down to where Florida meets Connecticut, so great to be here. Thanks.
Commissioner Wood.
Hi, Peter Wood, ANC 1C03, right in the middle. So that's Biltmore to Wyoming, 18th to 19th.
Great.
And Commissioner Carano's not here yet. So I'm Megan Faulkner, 1C04, the northwest corner of Adams Morgan around Walter Pierce Park.
Oh, I think it's me. Hi, I'm Commissioner Deb Felsenthal, and I'm at the northernmost point of Adams Morgan. I'm upper Lanier Heights, west of Columbia Road.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Boots. I'm Commissioner of 1C06, which is on the eastern edge between Colorama, Lanier, kind of loops around to Columbia, and 16th on the east edge.
Hi, Commissioner Jake Valaschini, 1C07, the red heart of Adams Morgan, from 18th to 17th, Florida up to Lanier.
Thank you. And my name is Fiona Clem, and my SMD is 1C08 in the southeast corner of Adams Morgan. Thanks, everyone. As I said, Commissioner Carano is going to join us a little bit later. And so now we'll approve the agenda. The agenda was posted on the website 10 days ago, and a link has been shared right there in the chat. And I have some additions and deletions on the agenda. I move to delete the Office of Finance agenda item number 5, as they didn't confirm their attendance after requesting to be on the agenda. Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any discussion points or questions about that agenda item? Okay, so we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor of removing item 5, the Office of Campaign Finance, from our agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
And are there any nays? Okay, thank you. That motion moves. And I also have a move to add consideration of a petition deadline extension for Lamont Royale, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Royal, in order to give extra time for a neighborhood input and creation of a settlement agreement. Is there a second?
Got it.
So the motion seconded. And are there any questions or discussion items for that? All right. So all those in favor of adding that to the agenda, please say aye.
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 Right. Are there any nays? All right. So both of those motions pass and our agenda is finalized. So next on our agenda is the officers report. So for the chair's report, I did want to just mention that if there's anybody in the community who would like to volunteer some time with the ANC to help us out with our website, we need some website updates. I'm embarrassed to tell you that a website is made on Joomla, so that's part of the reason why we can't find a volunteer. But so if anybody out there knows a Joomla expert in the neighborhood or elsewhere in the city, and they might be able to give us some advice or time, that would be greatly appreciated. The other announcement I wanted to make is obviously we're all saddened and horrified about what's going on in Ukraine. And there are many Ukrainian connections in DC in general. But there are 2 Ukrainian connections here in Adams Morgan, and both of them are running fundraisers this week for the humanitarian side of this situation. So tonight, Spacey Cloud is holding a fundraiser, and all this week, Delight is holding a fundraiser. And I'll put a link to other fundraisers in DC if people would like to support that. A couple of other announcements. Starting tomorrow after rush hour around 8 o'clock, going through Friday evening, Beach Drive near the zoo is going to be closed so that the National Park Service can work on the pedestrian side of the around the tunnel. So if you know where the tunnel is on Beach Drive where the zoo is, they're reworking the pedestrian sidewalk or the pedestrian and other bicycle sidewalk there. And so they are redirecting everybody, but cars can't go through there, and people and bikes can't go through there either. So just keep that in mind if you use that as a commuting route. And then finally, street sweeping started again yesterday and will run through October. And that means that if you do park on the street, you'll need to read signs and move your car if needed. So that's the chair's report. The secretary, Commissioner Falaskini, do you have an update?
Not as secretary. I can do it as just commissioner report.
All right, treasurer, Commissioner Faulkner.
Yes, just reporting that we have currently $6,666.39 in our bank account currently, and no other expenditures or changes to report.
Okay, thank you. And so now we'll go around the neighborhood for commissioner announcements. And if you are the chair of a committee, please let everybody know the time and agenda items for your committee. So 1C01, Commissioner Balaki.
Thank you very much. Just one quick announcement. I noticed this morning that the DC council member from Ward 3 tweeted that those paper year 2020 visitors parking permits we still have been extended through November 25th of 2022. So those permits continue to be useful until the day after Thanksgiving. And speaking as somebody who's had trouble logging into the system, it's not working yet. So back to you. Thanks.
Commissioner Carano will be joining us later. Commissioner Wood.
Thanks. So a week from tonight, March 9th, wow, will be the ANC 1C Committee on Alcohol Beverage Control and Public Safety. We have a few agenda items, so I'm looking forward to that. Just from 1C03, a few things. Well, I mean, just one in general, I guess not particular to SMD, but the Ward 1 Redistricting Task Force has about a month until we make a recommendation for ANC and SMD maps. So continue to go to the website, lots of publicly available information. We're all here, both as commissioners and then separately with me being the overlap as a task force to listen to public output and to hear what priorities are for people for the coming decades map. What else? Oh, this Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., there is a little cleanup group that's going to be doing some kind of maintenance work in Calderona Park. All are invited. There'll be, I think, a few different types of jobs to do. It's not just purely picking up trash, but it can be that if you want it to. And it's a really fun group, so hopefully it'll be a nice turnout and good weather. But I'll be there if it's raining. And then additionally, let's see what else. Oh, I mean, budget season's coming up. We just finished or close to finishing oversight hearings for performance oversight for different agencies throughout DC. So that means that the next phase is to hear public input on the fiscal year 2023 budget. I think we have a week or two until those meetings start, but take a look if you have any issues you want. We're all here as well to kind of be the advisors, literally speaking, on what those issues might be. And so I'm just going through my list here. Oh, and then also I imagine a representative from the bid will stay, but the bid's yearly meeting is this next week. So be on lookout for that. I think that's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Faulkner?
Yes, so the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee will be meeting 2 weeks from today on March 16th at 7 p.m. On our agenda for this month, currently, we will be hearing from DDOT about the first phase of the Columbia Road Bus Priority Project and hearing about their needs assessment, and they'll be wanting to hear from the community about our needs and hopes for Columbia Road. And that is currently the only thing on the agenda. I think I don't have any other updates except to mention that DDOT has begun installing pedestrian safety infrastructure along Columbia Road around Biltmore and Mintwood and several intersections. As of, I believe they started installing them yesterday. So people will likely be seeing that around the neighborhood. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Commissioner Felsenthal?
I don't have any updates currently.
Thank you. Commissioner Boots?
Just a couple of updates. One, since Commissioner Cronnell's not here, just the Public Service and the Environment Committee will be meeting March 23rd at 7 p.m. I don't think we have anything on the agenda right now, but if you do have something, a grant or something, please make sure to send that in. There's still time. And then the second thing is that we'll be looking for services to help run the logistics of our meetings, both as they are continuing to stay virtual, but as we go to hybrid as well. We have an RFP that we are working on and should be releasing relatively shortly. And so if there's anyone in the neighborhood who would be interested in taking over that duty, we would love for you to put in a proposal for us, and looking forward to continuing to have these meetings both virtually and eventually hybrid. If anyone has any questions on that, they can also email me.
Thank you. Commissioner Falskinny?
Thanks. Yeah. So I wanted to report out that there's a raise application that has been granted for a site in the SMD, 2300 Champlain Street Northwest. It's a 2-story building at the intersection of Calorama and Champlain. So the notice was issued on February 21st, 2022. So it is currently being reviewed by HPO. So just if you want to submit any sort of commentary or thoughts on it, feel free to send that along to me, and I can take care of that, or feel free to just do it yourselves. Also, heads up for all the parents in the district that the mask guidelines at DCPS have changed. There are now also free masks for all children now that they've changed the mask guidance to no longer require them for any outdoor play or activities for students at school. They're now available to students free of charge at the COVID centers. So feel free to get the masks at the COVID centers now that they are no longer required for outdoor play. They are required still for any indoor activities that are happening at DCPS. And those are my 2 updates.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, great. And then the next item on our agenda is to hear from Celeste Duffy, who is Community Relations Specialist from the DC Department of Public Works. If we can make her a panelist, please, Gordon. There we go.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm going to minimize my screen so I can look at my notes, but just in general, if I could, I would like to kind of remind everybody of what DPW is and what we do. And so DPW is the municipal organization and municipal agency that handles most of city services. So we do things like snow and ice removal, leaf and holiday tree collection, street and alley cleaning, mowing and grounds maintenance of public medians, major corridors and roadways and pocket parks, and obviously trash and recycling collection for DPW service households. We also have a bunch of initiatives like the Help Enhance program for communities that want to do community cleanups, which right now we're gearing up for because spring is usually the time for spring cleaning. And other things like waste diversion. So we really look into making sure that our holiday tree collection, our leaf collection, and grass clippings, other types of collection can, if not be recycled, but certainly be put so that we can turn that into composting, that we can then give back to residents for their own beautification projects. So as many of you know, you can go to Fort Totten and you can get on request for free, as long as you're a DC resident, any kind of composting that you may need. We also have those, our waste diversion office has those at least one in each ward. In some wards, it's more than one. We're hoping to expand composting centers at farmers markets on the weekends. So people who are composting at home can bring their compost to farmers markets, and that also aids in that effort. But specifically tonight, I want to talk about our spring operations. Spring is a big time for us. We move out of winter. Winter is, we sort of suspend a lot of services because it really takes a huge effort for our snow team, the DC snow team, for which DPW leads, to be on hand for any forecasted inclement weather event. So even times when you don't actually see snow on the ground or enough accumulated snow that would make it difficult, we still have to brine, we still have to pre-treat, we still have to deploy. So it may look at times in winter as if we're not doing much because there wasn't much accumulation. But the truth is, we may have been on a 48 or 72-hour deployment just to keep the roadways clear and passable for residents, however they choose to traverse the city. But spring, thank God, finally arrives. And when it does, we can finally go back to spring cleaning. And winter actually leaves a lot of debris and residue on city streets. So we're very concerned about what we're able to do for spring cleaning. And the first of which of our spring cleaning operations started yesterday, March 1st, which is street sweeping. I know you already mentioned it, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but what I would like to say is from March 1st to March 14th, we will be in the warning period. We will be letting people with vehicles know. We just put a warning ticket on their windshield if they do not observe the signage that says that they need to move to the alternate side of the street. They just received a warning so that they will know that after March 14th, if their car still remains there or their vehicle still remains there, when we come back again, we will actually issue, it'll be a $45 fine. And the reason for that is because those street sweeping routes were requested by residents and had to have 80% of the residents on that block to agree. So they have to honor their agreement because our sweepers have to be able to access the curbside to actually thoroughly be able to clean the street. So if you're in a street sweeping neighborhood, please observe it yourself and also tell your neighbors and friends. Make sure you check the signs and avoid a ticket in any way possible, because you don't have to receive one. You just need to move to the alternate side of the street. And that's March 1st. That's our flagship for spring operations. But we have a whole bunch of things coming on in April. So in April, we will begin street and alley cleaning. Alley cleaning is a manual operation. It goes from March 1, depending upon the weather. We may suspend if there was some inclement weather coming, but in general, it's from March 1st to October 31st. And what that generally means is that we go through every alley in the district and we manually clean it. And then after we clean it, residents are expected to maintain the public space that abuts their property. Now, if there is an alley that poses a specific safety hazard or where there's been illegal dumping, of course, we will continue to assist. But in general, we will do the initial cleaning, we will get the alley in good shape, and we would want to partner with residents and make sure everyone's a good neighbor to also help doing that. Yard waste. The rains will come, which means the grass will grow. And so people will be mowing their lawns, and we're asking folks when they have yard waste, because people take time in the spring to kind of spruce up their yards, to we will pick up your yard waste. You do not have to dispose of it. We will do that. Just call 311, do a yard waste service request. They will give you a date, so it's scheduled. They will give you a date on when to have your yard waste out at your point of collection, and we will pick it up for you then. So if you use a service, you can schedule the service by that, or if you do it yourself, you can schedule yourself by that. And I believe we pick up to 20 bags of yard waste. After yard waste, we also have, and please check our website, because there's certainly more detail than I'm offering here. We do grass and mowing, cutting, which we talked about, which is all of the district owned, which is, I know, over 1,100 properties, but I believe has even increased. I'm not sure of the exact number, but it's definitely over 1,100 different properties where we mow, landscape, and maintain. And actually, we have a schedule at the peak season of an inch. If the grass grows up to a specific number of inches, then we go, but generally we cut those areas every 2 weeks. So if you know of a district-owned property that is overgrown, or there may be a lot of heavy rain, so we get behind, please call 311, identify the location, and it can be put, if it's probably on our schedule, we'll let you know the next scheduled cutting date. But if it's not, then that would give us an opportunity to put that on our schedule and get that maintained as well. Graffiti removal. So we find sometimes that we have graffiti on buildings. It's a little bit tricky because many of the buildings or the walls on which the graffiti resides are not publicly owned. They're not district-owned buildings. They're privately owned buildings, which requires us to seek a waiver from the owner. Now, we will abate the graffiti for free as long as the owner gives us permission to touch that private property. So once we receive a signed waiver, then that graffiti can be scheduled. And then we will go, and the condition is, well, there are a couple. One is that it has to be lower than 2 stories. Anything higher than that has to go to a specific type of contractor, because our personnel can only go up so high on the equipment that we have. But we use a certain type of solution that requires us to make sure that the temperature is 45 degrees or above. So as long as it's 45 degrees or above, our solution will work and we can abate graffiti. And also just a quick amount of attention to any community that wants to do a beautification or help enhance project. We will loan you a toolkit. It is a $20 deposit, and in that, with that deposit, you will receive at least in the toolkit, I think it's 5 rakes, 20 bags, gloves, and I think 2 shovels. And we will, if you schedule that project, community cleanup or beautification project with us, we will make arrangements to leave all of the debris at a specific location, and we will come and collect it. So if you do the cleaning, we will dispose of the work. And I'm happy at this time to take any questions about spring operations or anything involving DPW in general.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all that information. That's great. I have a couple of quick questions. One is, I don't have street sweeping in some of my SMD streets, and it seems that there's leaves and debris left over from winter. Is that just a 311 request?
You actually don't have to do it, because we actually sweep non-posted streets as well. Now, here's the challenge. If you want your street swept very thoroughly, it's probably good to coordinate that, because what you're still going to have to do is ask your neighbors to move their cars, because if we can access that curbside, we will go down it. So if you were to say, send me an email and say, my neighbors and I agree that you can have the curbside, on the right or on the northwest side of the street on Tuesday on Tuesday, such and such a date. We will have a crew there, because we're going to go down your street. We'll go down the middle, but every place where our sweeper can get to the curbside, we'll absolutely get it.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of public schools in our neighborhood. What is the difference between maintaining lawns from DC public schools versus DPW? Who do we call if we see overgrown lawns near a school? Of course, I'm not even sure what the actual parameters are. So, I mean, I don't know if it's actually part of the school or if it's DPW. Can I just 311 that and you and DPS will sort it out, or how does that work?
All right, so DGS maintains public school properties. So the question then, if I'm understanding correctly, is if the area is part of the school property or if it's part of the public space. If it's public space, then that's something that DPW would be involved in. But the likelihood is it's part of the school footprint.
Okay.
Because the school footprint is beyond just the school door.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I think is likely to happen. I'm certainly willing to assist and help to figure that out. But in general, it's very, very likely. Nobody puts a blueprint to build a school that begins at the doorway. So it's very, very likely that there are several feet from that doorway that are part of that school's footprint. So the most likely answer is DGS.
DGS. Thank you so much. Okay. It looks like we have a question from Commissioner Wood.
Hi, I'll be quick. I mean, first, thank you, Celeste. I know that speaking of leaf cleanup, I've advocated for some constituents who had some issues, and you've been amazing in helping. So thanks again for that. Just you mentioned cleanup packs. You got trash grabbers by any chance, or is it just rakes and things like that?
It's just rakes. We don't have pickers. Pickers are not part of the toolkit. But we understand that why people like pickers, and unfortunately, that just isn't in the budget for what we are able to assemble for our toolkit.
It's okay. Other agencies got that budget, so I'll bug them about it. Thanks.
Commissioner Falaskini.
Hey, thanks so much. Celeste, thank you so much for the presentation. When you said that the school boundary stops, does it stop at the sidewalk and extend, or does it extend all the way out to the curb? So we've had some issues of broken glass around some of our schools where, you know, it doesn't seem like DGS is taking care of it. If it's on the sidewalk extending out to the curb and I file a 311, is that you all to deal with, or should I be like bugging DGS on it?
It's very likely it's DGS. And let me give you a kind of a quick rule of thumb for you and others who may have similar situations. Just in a private residence, in a single family home, the homeowner is responsible to maintain the quote public property that abuts their house. And that's defined as from their front door to the end of the curb, including the tree box. So if the homeowner, an individual homeowner, has to maintain or has to be responsible for from their single front door all the way to the curb, including the tree box, it's extremely likely that a building such as a school has far more territory that it must be responsible for.
Okay, thank you.
And I hope that was clear. I'm not sure if I made that clear.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It seems like it's up to the curb, and then once it's curb out into the street, then it would be the Department of Public Works.
I'm not even sure if it's a school, I actually think even out into the street. There probably is, and I can find out specifically, but I'm sure there's actually an inch. It might be 22 inches into the street is still the school.
Okay. I will find someone at DGS that will respond to these things then.
I'm happy to actually look into this and get a good contact for Commissioner Clem and send tomorrow. In fact, I'm going to make a note right now while we're talking, just to kind of help everyone out as at least a starting point. If not, you know, certainly where you can resolve these issues.
That would be great. Thank you so much. And sorry, just a couple more questions. So you said that the manual cleaning of alleyways begins March 1st. Is there a schedule?
No. The manual cleaning of alleyways begins in April.
Sorry.
Street sweeping is March 1st.
So April through October 31st.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then do you have a schedule for when you go through particular alleys?
I don't have that right now. Our street and alley division is probably going to finalize that schedule in about maybe by this time next week, if not the end of next week, but it is done by ward. So what they would actually have is a ward schedule. So they may say, Ward 1, here's our days, or, Ward 6, here's our days. And then they would take all of their personnel, they would slice up that ward, take all of their personnel and have them in different alleys all through that ward.
Okay, great. The sooner we can let folks know, the better, just so that they can coordinate and be around. And I'm sure it's more helpful for you all to have the neighbors there, especially if you're going to be kind of handing off maintenance to
Now,
that
if there is an alley that has something other than routine annual cleaning, which means, debris, a relative amount of trash, overgrowth, that stuff is a natural part of what happens in a year. But if you've got illegal dumping, like you said, maybe broken glass, abandoned vehicles, things that impede the safety of the alley, that alley would then get pushed up into priority. So if you have alleys like that, you certainly can send them to me, and I can let the street and alley supervisors know, when you're in this ward, this is a priority alley because this is impeding safety.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And is there also an option for power washing? I've had a couple of constituents ask that.
We do a manual clean of alleys, which means we literally have people out with rakes and hats cutting down debris and those types of things. I do not think that we have I'm sure we don't have enough power washers for every alley in the city. Power washing is not necessarily a part of it, but if there's a spill or oil or some type of contaminant, then there is an environmental crimes unit that can address that. But it's not, every ward doesn't get power washed.
Okay, cool. I've just had a couple of constituents that have.
No, I understand.
Cool. Thank you so much. That was it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other commissioner questions or discussion points from the commissioners? Okay, and what about the attendees? It doesn't look like there are any raised hands from the attendees. Are there any questions? Oh, there we go. Vikram.
Go ahead, Vikram.
Okay. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I can hear you.
Greetings, everyone. Really appreciate all your service. Forgive me, I may have raised my hand too soon. We're not yet in the public comment. We're just in the questions for the public works person.
That is correct. We're going to do public comments in just a second. Okay?
I jumped the gun. It's amazing how, it's amazing the level of service. I'm totally impressed, but I jumped the gun on my question, on raising my hand. So forgive me.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so are there any other questions from the participants for Ms. Duffy? Well, thank you, Ms. Duffy, for being here. We really appreciate it. We appreciate everything that DPW does. And so I'm sure we will be in communication sometime this spring.
I'm happy to come back,
so
as the season moves on, and certainly feel free to contact me if questions come up as we're doing our spring operations. I'm absolutely able to assist in any way that DPW can. So please continue to contact me, and we are at your service.
Thanks again. Thank you so much.
All right.
Moving on to the public announcements part, if everybody could try to limit their announcements to 2 minutes, that would we would be very grateful. It looks like Vikram, you have a public announcement.
Sure. Hey there, greetings, commissioners. I haven't met all of you. I'm Vikram Suryachirvolu. I'm a licensed counselor here in the district, a psychotherapist, as well as a person that's been working in alliance with a number of folks in our neighborhood regarding what's going on at 1800 Columbia, the plaza. And as some of you may have seen today, Truist began the process of actually moving in 2-ton concrete Jersey barriers to put a 300-foot barricade around the property. I would just want to make you all aware that that's happening. It happened very quickly. There were 2 permits issued back to back in mid-February that we were not actually aware of. I'm part of Adams Morgan for Reasonable Development, which is a community group here. We were not made aware of until members of our group were being harassed by security guards to get off the plaza and to get their property off the plaza. And one of the unhoused, who's been there for over 2 years, had his property taken and destroyed in this past few days. That's Sean Jenkins. He's not yet, I believe, actually housed. He's in process. The reason I just wanted to share and show up here is that you all are to thank. There's a standing resolution from 2017 from this ANC indicating to all city agencies that they should pause processing until the litigation regarding the site is complete. It's been our contention. There's a public use easement that has been why it's been legal, and up until February of last year, there were never any signs regarding private property. It's why it's been legal 24/7, 365 to use the space without interference from the bank. There's a public use easement on the basis of the bank's charter, which the ANC is specifically written into the bank's charter. The agreement reached with the ANC, which included the use of that public space and also included a set of anti-racist banking practices. It just happens that right now, I think, all of you who are commissioners, I'm not white. I'm a minority. Many people in our group are members of minorities or part of interracial families. The reason we're passionate about this plaza is because it is a symbol of the anti-racist legacy of Adams Morgan, and it was directly a result of Frank Smith, who was the creator of this ANC and the Holy ANC model, and a city councilman and a Black man who drove the creation of this plaza. And so, long story short, there are a couple of permits that have been issued recently. And Peter, unfortunately, I saw a letter from you directly to an executive at Truist issuing your authorization and permission for the permit to go forward that was included by DCRA in the permit documents that I just didn't understand. Didn't understand it so much. I called my contact at the Attorney General's office, Josh Turner, who specialized in ANC issues, and confirmed the role of ANC commissioners is not to represent the whole ANC on their own. And so that was really concerning to see that letter. And I'll put a link to it in the chat. You all can take a look and decide, what you think about it. It's not entirely clear to me that ANC approval was necessary, but to see that was disappointing. And at this point, we're still engaged in the fight. The court case is proceeding. Where we were called for arguments before the DC Court of Appeals on March 17th, just 2 weeks away. So it's our belief that what Truist is trying to do is sort of make it a fait accompli, create a de facto occupation that essentially makes any claim of a public use easement null on its face, which is essentially a use of its bullying power and money to push aside the legal process. And we just won't stand for it. So, I just really appreciate all the effort everyone goes to, on the various Wednesday nights each month to be here. It's a lot of work to be a commissioner, and the people that have come before you that helped create this anti-racist neighborhood we live in. I hope we can just honor their legacy. Thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you, Vikram. Okay. Did you just drop off? Okay. Well, did you have a question, Commissioner Wood?
Just because I was mentioned directly, I wanted to clarify. So when there's an issue, so as far as I know, ANC commissioners do not represent the entire ANC and also do not get to approve permits. But when there's a request for a standing permit to have after hours authorization so that the same activity that has already been authorized or is pending can be conducted after hours, that is common practice to refer to the SMD's particular commissioner. I was contacted about that. I made several very specific requests, specifically to Truist, saying that one, people that are unhoused and living on the plaza need to be prioritized always and always. Two, that 2 weeks notice needs to be given to the proper authorities. I wasn't given that, but I presume that others were. before that activity to be undertaken, which in this case was erection of a fence, and also that there would be sufficient noise, just addressable of noise if that were to be done after hours. That's what it's public documentation, free to share it as well, but really important to clarify that, because to insinuate that I was somehow usurping power to do something that didn't take place, I think is a bit unfair, but free to do so. I know that took more than 2 minutes for that to happen, but just wanted to make it clear there on that. Thank you.
I originally asked for the Office of Campaign Finance to be removed from the agenda because I had not received a confirmation. But Belinda Perry is here from the Office of Campaign Finance, and it would be great if she gave a short presentation, and then we'll just slide her into the public announcements area, and then come back to the rest of the community for their public announcements. I'm sorry for the confusion, Ms. Perry. If you would like to share some of your presentation, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I wanted to raise my hand, but I didn't want to interfere with your procedural process because I know these things happen and sometimes we have our signals crossed. So thank you so much for having me, Commissioner Chair and Commissioners. My name is Belinda Kittles Perry. I am a staff attorney. I am an attorney advisor, rather, with the Office of Campaign Finance. I came to the office in 2019 as a policy analyst initially, and I was hired specifically to work with our new flagship program, the Fair Elections Program. So we have successfully launched our first entire whole election under the Campaign Finance Program, and it has been a wonderful vehicle, and it has done extremely well. So I just want to give you a little brief overview of the Office of Campaign Finance. Most of you know, but for the public, if there is anyone that's remotely interested, we have 5 divisions of our office, and that is the Office of General Counsel, the Office of Training and Development, the Office of Report Analysis and Audit Division, the Public Information and Record Management Program, and the Fair Elections Program. I'm going to abbreviate my presentation because I know we're on a tight schedule at this point. So the Office of General Counsel, we basically are the enforcement arm of the office. So we try to make sure the trains are running and everyone's doing what they're supposed to do. We hold informal hearings, and we also give interpretive opinions on expedited basis during election times when it's necessary that we move essentially and quickly. The training and development, yours truly have me here presenting to you tonight, and they also train the staff in-house as well, and they also train mandatory training for the new registrants in the election process. The Report and Analysis Division basically heads up the traditional program, and they conduct random audits and full field audits as well. Then we have the Public Information and Record Management Division, which is responsible for the entire filing system, which you know is pretty savvy for our district and very sophisticated, and they monitor the on-filings registrations for all campaign candidates in the entire district. They give pre-filing notifications and they give late filing notifications, and they have a very robust website and a lot of transparency with respect to any and all publications, and any and all reports are filed and maintained on this system. So overall, the Office of Campaign Finance is responsible for administering both programs, the traditional and the fair elections. But I want to just focus on the fair elections right now, because I know during this election cycle, 2022, there are a lot more seats available that were in the 2020 election cycle. And a lot of folks are probably very interested, as they were 2 years ago as well. We know the program came into existence in 2018, and it was promulgated by law on May 5th, and it went operational on November 7th, my birthday, yay. So the birth of this program is in conjunction with a growing trend around the nation, and there are 34 jurisdictions that have similar type programs of public funds. So some may be hybrids, some may be grants, some may be limitations on contributions and expenditures, and ours is a pretty straightforward public matching funds program. So in the District of Columbia, our program consists of a base amount for each respective seat, and it's staggered based on the seat and the and whether or not it's a local seat or a citywide seat. And so the component is a base amount, and then there's also a matching funds amount. The way it works is that if you have a contribution from a district resident, you will receive $5 for every $1 that you seek. You are also entitled to receive out of jurisdiction contributions, but they will not be matched. So the genesis of this program, again, is to ward off dark money, to level the playing field, to allow individuals that might not otherwise be part of the electoral process to join in, because we want to take fundraising off the plate. Sometimes when incumbents are entrenched in their seat, they are beholden to corporations because they need those donations. So they double down, they keep doing things, and they keep giving attention to the people that give them the money. We want to stop this. We want to level the playing field, have all voices heard. And what's better than if an individual is community-based, they have to, by design of statute of the program, they have to have a certain amount of small-time contributors and a certain amount of dollar amount. So that shows right there that they have garnered interest in them. So they have something to say, something to give. So this allows them to enter the playing field and to have some support and not just go after the big dollars. So if you want to be a participant in the Fair Elections program, you cannot receive corporate donations. You cannot receive donations, well, you can, but you cannot get donations matched from out of the jurisdiction. And you cannot take money from PACs. You can only take money by statute from a Fair Elections PAC, which are non-existent to date thus far. So it's a complete different vehicle. And I'm happy to say, as you all know, we have completed that election cycle. 7 out of 11 candidates were actually seated and won through the Fair Elections program. So that's a huge, huge, huge win. And just for your information, when you, if you're curious or you have some really detailed questions that you want, there is a lot of information on the website, and there's a post-election report for the 2020 election cycle, and it's in 4 parts, and it's extremely detailed, down to the dollar. So in sum, I'm just gonna wrap this up, just to tell you the, well, as we say, bragging rights, what has happened during that election. There, in 2020, there were 20 candidates between the general election and the special election. There were 20 candidates for the general, 12 for the primary, and 4, if you remember, in Ward 2, there was a special election. And out of those, there was a total of 36 candidates. Over $4 million was dispersed. And that $4 million was a combination of base payments and matching fund payments. And at this stage, now in 2022, and it's only March, there are 35 participating candidates certified to date. So as you see, it's a growing trend. And now we have many more seats that are open. And finally, I'm going to leave this with you just to give you a working parameter and understanding of the dollar amounts and the cap amounts. So the cap is adjusted by statute and a formula based on preceding elections. So the cap right now for the mayor is $3,544,475. The cap for the chair is $616,222. The cap for the attorney general is $825,633. The cap for the at-large council member is $333,394. For the ward council member cap is $233,384. And for the Ward State Board of Education member, the cap is $33,294. And just again, to show you the working parameter of the way the program is structured, say you're running for mayor, you are required to have a total of a minimum of 1,000 small dollar contributions, and for an aggregate amount of $40,000. That gets you in the door and certified. Then you get your first base amount, first half of your base amount, and then once you're in the ballot, you get your second half of the base amount. And going down in descending order for the seat, the chair is $300, with a requirement for $15,000. And the Attorney General is $500 for a total amount of $20,000. And at large counsel is $250 for a base amount of $12,000. And ward council member is $150 for a total amount of $5,000. The at large state board of ed is $150 for a total amount of $5,000. And the ward state board of ed is $50 for a total amount of $1,000. So as you can see, again, a growing trend. We have painstakingly put this program into effect. We have just been audited as required by statute by the DC auditors and came out really smooth sailing with very, very few recommendations. So we're just happy to spread the word, tell your constituents, tell your friends, consider it for yourself. And again, thank you for allowing me to present and hope to see you more often. Take care.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. We might have some questions for you. I really appreciate your time. I'm sorry about the confusion for the agenda. I am curious. So this is the type of thing where if somebody announces they're running for an election, do they have to sign on to this immediately? Or is it the type of thing where later on in the campaign they find, oh, I don't feel like raising private funds, or, you know, I mean, when in the process do they sign up for this process?
Well, you don't want to jump ship midstream. So once you have declared your intentions, you really need to know which way. So it's something that you should sit down with your advisor, your treasurer, and there's something you should plan out before, because it did happen in the genesis of this program that someone decided, oh, we want to ship, but that's not what you want to happen. You want to declare your intentions. You want to either run in the traditional program and or in the fair elections program, because you're cross-pollinating, because the rules are very stringent for the fair elections program, because we're being heavily scrutinized and monitored. So as you know, if you get matching payments, you would have to give them all back in order to then switch to the traditional. So it would be not advisable. We really want to stay focused and take time to deliberate before you make your decisions, and recognize the threshold. It's not very high, so it's doable, and it's something that, as you see publicly, many people have signed on to. So it's a growing trend and popular, again, across the nation. I think it's a thing of the future that's here to stay.
Thank you so much. Are there any, Commissioner Falaschini, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your presentation. I'm such a huge fan of the fair election system in DC. You all do a wonderful job. The program is absolutely excellent. I helped run the campaign for one of the first fair election systems in the United States in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, great.
And was happy to watch that come into being, and have been so excited to watch DC's gain more and more traction. I'd note also that our own city council member here in Ward 1, Brianne Nadeau, runs a fair elections campaign. I think it's great, and as someone that is often hit up by many political folks for contributions, I certainly appreciate the fact that $50 is the maximum that I have to give. So thank you so much, Belinda, and appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion points from commissioners? It looks like Irene Thomas has their hand raised. Is that for public announcement, or would you like to have a question? Do you have a question for Ms. Perry?
She said in the chat she wanted to speak to the Truist SunTrust Plaza issue.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon. All right, great. Well, Ms. Perry, thank you so much. I mean, I'm sure that we'll be, reaching out to you as the campaign, as the campaigns get, more involved. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank
and
you. Good night.
Absolutely.
Okay. Take care. Good night.
So I'm moving back to public announcements. Now I see Kristen Barden's hand raised. Kristen, if you have.
She's coming up.
Yep, great.
Hi, everyone. It always takes a minute when you're advanced to a panelist
Yes.
to get everything set up. So sorry about that. So I just wanted to provide a few updates on our spring programming, and also to thank Fiona for participating as a judge for the Valentine's Day contest. That was a lot of fun. I think both the businesses and the residents and the judges really enjoyed that. So the winners were, you've probably already heard, but the Life of Riley won for first place. And then Copacabana won second place, and Duplex Diner, 18th Avenue Duplex Diner won third place. So congratulations to our winners, and thank you to all the judges who participated, and the public. The public also voted, and they acted as one. The cumulative public comments acted as one vote. So it was a lot of fun. And so upcoming and ongoing right now, the date nights promotion that we do in February and March every year is entering its second month. And we've already chosen 2 of the package prize winners. And we have 2 more prize packages to give away. So that's going along really well. And we're going to bring back the ADMO Art Walk that we did last spring in April and May, I think. We did it last year. We're going to try to launch it mid-April and run it through mid-May for about a month. We have about 13 businesses so far signed up, and we're partnering with DC Art Center to partner us with artists. So artists will display their work in the store or restaurant windows, and there'll be a sign in the window with a QR code for people passing by to get more information about the art or the artist. So it's a really easy, interesting project. It's a great partnership with DC Art Center, and it gives their artists a little bit more publicity. So, and it was a very COVID-friendly event last year. So we're kicking that off now. And if you know artists that would be interested in displaying their work, please either put them in touch with us or with DC Art Center. They're putting out a request, a call for artists to the general public, I think this week. So they first wanted to ask the artists from last year if they wanted to participate. A couple of them I think are, and then now they're putting out the public call for artists. So, and then we're bringing back the drag queen story hours that we did in Unity Park. We did those one Sunday a month in the warm weather, and they're very popular. This started in the community center at the Line Hotel. We moved it outside during COVID, and it's each one we did was getting more and more, families to attend. So those are going to come back in April. I think we're going to do it the last Saturday of April, or sorry, the last Sunday of every month. So starting with the last Sunday in April and running through October, I think. We did one in November this last year, and it was just a little bit too cold to sit on the ground. But we're also going to be purchasing some more supplies for that event through the DPR grant that Councilmember Nadeau got for some Ward 1 parks. So the only park in Adams Morgan that's eligible for that money is Unity Park, and we're partnering with District Bridges to get some of that funding for Unity Park. So with that, we're going to purchase some rubber mats for the kids to sit on for the Drag Queen Story Hour. We're going to purchase some arts and crafts supplies. We're going to pay the drag queens a little bit more money because it takes a lot of time to get into makeup and costume. And there's a number of other things that we're gonna do. So anyhow, that's really great. I'm really glad that the council member was able to get that money into the DPR budget. So and then Kellerama Park, we're going to be doing a symphony series in Kellerama Park. We're calling it the ADMO Vibe because we can't call it Symphony in the Park. That term is used already, and they said, no, you can't call it that. So we're going to call it the ADMO Vibe. We're confirming the schedule. It's a little tricky. These are symphony at the National Symphony Orchestra. these are members of their squad. So we have to kind of work around their schedule. But right now it looks like Wednesdays or Thursdays in the first 3 weeks of May. So look for more to come on that. But we're trying to do it on a weeknight. And there'll be 2 sets, probably 2 45-minute sets with a break in between. So, and then movie nights. I think I mentioned movie nights last month, but those are going to start up on Tuesdays, beginning May 24th, running through June 21st, with June 28th as the rain date. And the series this year is going to be pretty varied. I'm not even sure if we're going to have a theme, but because we want to kind of incorporate, because there's a lot of different things going on. So there's Pride Week in June. And so we want to do a movie to celebrate the LGBTQ community. And we're partnering with the public library on that movie. We want to partner with the Embassy of India to talk about their space program. And so that the movie is called Mission Mangal, M-A-N-G-A-L. And then the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum wants to do something with us too. So this year the movies might not have a theme, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So each movie is going to be, something really special. So so stay tuned for more on that. I think that's it for me. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks, great update. Looking forward to all of those activities. And now there's no hand raised in, here we go. Oh, all right, okay. There we go. Irene Thomas?
They're coming up.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Great. So I'd like to quickly continue speaking on the subject of the plaza that Vikram had brought up. Yes, the importance of commemorating and the support of the ongoing anti-racism in our community is extremely important to me as a neighbor and also as a person of color. Thank you also, Commissioner Wood, for the prompt communications with me earlier today on this topic. We had a few chats and I did appreciate that. As Vikram talked about, Truist Bank tried to fence off the plaza at 1800 Columbia Road, and this was against the stipulations of the permit. These deviations are clearly not allowed as stated there. And, it's only through the fast and frankly, downright courageous actions of concerned neighbors that we were able to witness and report on this. This is not the first time Truist has acted recklessly. They actually have a record of exceptionalism in our neighborhood. And sadly, I feel this is very much this Goliath versus David scenario, which is hurting our most vulnerable community in very real ways, material ways that impact them to the minute in the dead of winter. And so I'd like to respectfully ask Commissioner Wood to really support that kind of accountability for our neighbors and neighborhoods. And I just want to reflect on this a little bit further. This past Saturday, Truist hired security guards. They destroyed and removed all of the dwellings from the plaza, as Vic also talked about. These are belongings that are very hard to come by. With the weather and everything that happens, we have to replenish them. The services that are provided to them are really not providing the day-to-day, especially when we talk about partnerships with Miriam's Kitchen. All of these kinds of belongings are supportive with mutual aid and neighbors like myself that are coming and continuing to speak with them. So the fact that these guards were taking these belongings and traumatizing the residents and then actually opening the old SunTrust building, nailing it shut so that they can't access it, it's completely disgusting. So that was happening this Saturday. On February 11th, Councilmember Brianne Nadeau tweeted that she had overseen the safe housing of every resident on the plaza. Unfortunately, this does not seem to be true. I spoke with displaced residents. I also spoke with the caseworker from Miriam's Kitchen just to validate and verify this. At least 4 long-term plaza residents have yet to be given vouchers. That would be Miguel, Larry, Hashim, and Jeannie, just to name a few. And there are more, but those are the 4 main residents that have been there long-term and part of our neighborhood for decades and decades. So with these continued requests to come and talk to us and really have an open, transparent conversation around this and reduce the harm to the most traumatized and vulnerable in our community, I have really 3 material requests I'd like to make. One is ask the commissioners and council member Nadeau to commit to holding a space for the community members who are so engaged and truly emotionally tied to this, but also thinking through the solutions and pathways that could move us forward. And we're not trying to be blockers. So how can we have a forum about this and the safety of the community with urgency, because this is happening in real time? So that's number 1. Number 2 would be, I'd like to ask for access on the plaza space for our neighbors, especially our house, whether they're on the plaza or not. This is a gathering space where they feel safe, they're able to speak to each other and communicate and share, different tips and such. This is how they're surviving through the most difficult of times. So that would be 2. The constant presence of the security guards is very traumatizing for them. And then 3rd, which is most immediate, I'd like to ask my commissioner, Peter, to, I think you have the power to help put a pause to this permit as the sole permit approver. And, what Truist continue to break the rules and create a dangerous situation, especially in that intersection and especially on that plaza, and with the harm that's happening to our unhoused, I would like you to put a pause on the permits and have an open conversation with us on how we can move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Irene Thomas. Eric B.
Yes, thank you. Hi, this is Eric Blodnicker, a longtime resident of Adams Morgan here on Ontario Road. I'd like to just mirror a number of the comments that Vikram and Red have commented on. I'd also like to ask the ANC to draft or sign on to a letter that condemns Truist's most recent actions at the Adams Morgan Plaza, which include their ongoing attempts to fence off the entire plaza site, mind you, while the litigation is going on, and to address the treatment that several of the unhoused members of our community have dealt with from Truist and Truist's private security. Several, like Ren had mentioned, several of the individuals had their personal belongings taken and dragged into the SunTrust underground parking garage. And additionally, the private security have been harassing pedestrians that are either sitting on the brick benches or those tables, or even just for standing on the plaza. People are being told that they are loitering and are trespassing on private property. I myself and 2 other individuals were simply standing on the lower plaza area on Monday, and a private security officer came up to us and informed us that we were trespassing and that they had the authority to call the police if we didn't leave the property. I was just sent an image from a person who's at the plaza at the moment from the private security guard who's going to be staying there overnight. And there's an outline of the plaza that basically goes around the entire plaza onto the sidewalk all the way to the corner and back again, denoting where they claim is private property. So clearly there's a disconnect between the security forces that are there, or the security forces are been given false information so they can then go and harass the pedestrians with some degree of dignity. I'm not sure. But clearly Truist knows where the property lines are around this plaza. It's absurd to think that they're ignorant of that. And they're responsible for the private security they have there in their actions. So I'm not sure how to go about this. I'm not sure if the ANC would want to draft a letter condemning certain actions of Truist, or it would be something that the community would help draft and you would sign on to. I guess that's my question or my ask. And just to inform you of the actions of Truist and their associates, which just seems completely against their whole, I don't know if you've been familiarized with any of their, Truist begins with trust logos and sayings and their whole propaganda machine, but it's completely absurd, and they need to be held accountable for their actions, particularly if they want to move into our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public announcements or comments on any of the public announcements? All right, thanks. We will move on to the next item on our agenda. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We will be approving the minutes. All those in favor of, for a consent agenda, you don't have discussion because that's why, but if you have a discussion point on the consent agenda, then we pull it out of the consent agenda. So the point is that we will be voting on the consent agenda unless somebody motions to move the meeting minutes out of the consent agenda. All those in favor of approving the minutes from last month's meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you, that passes. So now we're on to the regular agenda. The first item on the regular agenda is ABC and Public Safety, consideration of a settlement agreement for Yerevan, ABRA 120217 restaurant on 18th Street. The settlement agreement is in the agenda if you need to look at it. Commissioner Wood, if you want to introduce this.
Definitely. I believe a representative is here, Stella. Yeah, thanks for staying with us. Yeah, so Yerevan, in my SMD in 1203 on 18th Street, we've been blessed with multiple small bakeries that have contributed quite a bit in a short amount of time to the neighborhood. I'll let them do the rest, but glad to have you here, Stella.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time and for adding us to the agenda. And so we applied for alcohol license for Yerevan Cafe. We're a small restaurant, Armenian, and we were hoping to get the alcohol license and serve some Armenian wine that our customers been waiting for. We will have Armenian cognac as well and a few options of beer. So we are not a bar. We are not going to have many options, and we are not planning to stay open after 10 p.m. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. The consideration is for the settlement agreement that was signed recently. The settlement agreement goes over things like hours of operations, trash cleanup, everything like that, and it was signed by Stella, the owner, and Dennis James of KCA. So if there's no discussion, the question is the consideration of the settlement agreement. So we can just vote on the settlement agreement. However, I have just been informed that that it would be beneficial to Yerevan to include a stipulated license as for this establishment because, as many people know, their placard period will not end until April 4th. So the stipulated license, what that does is we're going to approve this. Well, I'm not going to say we approve it. I'm going to say we're going to consider the settlement agreement. If in fact the settlement agreement passes, then what the ANC can do is then they can also vote on a stipulated license, which can go into effect immediately. So the first consideration on the floor is the consideration of the settlement agreement, and then I will make a motion to create and pass so the motion on the floor is consideration of the settlement agreement. If we have no discussion items, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Stella. I make a motion to provide a stipulated license for this for Yerevan, based on our signed settlement agreement. Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is stipulated license for Yerevan based on the settlement agreement that was just signed and passed by the ANC. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? I haven't been asking for abstentions because I think they're all unanimous, but thank you. That passes 7-0. So Stella, the ANC will be providing Abra the information on both your settlement agreement and your stipulated license, and you should get contact from them shortly. Thank you so much for being here.
Very much. Thank you for your time. And I also wanted to thank Commissioner Wood because I reached out in many occasions and asked many questions. So thank you very much to all of you. And that's great.
All right, moving on. We added a consideration for an extension of a newly placarded La Mont Royale. What this means is the placard, here, let me show this to you. The placard timing is such that the placard period has now changed. During the last 2 years, the placard period has been 66 days, which has been very helpful in negotiating settlement agreements and getting things done. This placard period has now reverted to 45 days. The timing is such that it sort of, to get, even if we get a settlement agreement, it sort of runs up against some deadlines of ours as well as the ABRA deadlines. So the applicant has requested an extension. And so that's exactly what it is. It is an extension for this placard period. I think they originally requested 10 days. We can say 30 days. We can say till the end of April. Protest period ends. We can say that the protest petition deadline is not April 4th. We can say that it's April 24th, which would be the day before roll call. And then hopefully we can get a settlement agreement negotiated in the meantime or have other discussions with the applicant. Are there any questions on what we are trying to do here? All right, so we have placed this on the agenda, so all we need is to vote on this extension. All those in favor of providing an extension to La Mont Royale for their protest period, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion passes 7-0. Thanks. Okay, so moving on to the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee. We first on our agenda is a resolution that provides support for the streetscape improvements. This was introduced by Commissioner Valaschini. If you'd like to introduce it to the rest of the community.
Yes, sorry, let me actually pull up the resolution. Sorry, I was taking notes as secretary, so I was in other documents. But now I'm in.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
So we considered this at the fully considered this at our PZT committee meeting. So I won't go into it in too much depth. If you want to, you can pull up the video from the PZT meeting in order to watch the full coverage of it. But essentially, the DC City Council approved 1.7 million in funding for streetscape improvements along U Street between 14th Street and 18th Street. So a lot of that is in Adams Morgan, or would be on the southern border of Adams Morgan. Also, what we know is coming up is, or potentially is coming up, is an extension of the circulator car that currently goes from Georgetown to DuPont. And that could end up going up 18th, hanging right on Florida, right on U. and going all the way up to U Street. But currently, because we have such narrow sidewalks between Florida and 17th Street, there would not be an appropriate place for the circulator bus to actually stop anywhere along our southern border, even if it were to come through our neighborhood. So part of what this resolution calls for is for these streetscape improvements to actually get done, for DDOT to prioritize them, and for us to have a plan moving forward, and that the plan should consider that if we do have a circulator bus that is going along U Street, that we need to at least consider widening the sidewalks along U Street between 18th and 17th, so that there can be a potential circulator stop along that stretch. There are other things that are in there as well, but that's the gist of the resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner Falaschini. It looks like Commissioner Wood has a question.
Really quick, and I admit I'm being a bit of a perfectionist here, but in the first whereas clause, it says that we invite DDOT. Is there any value maybe changing that to request or something slightly more firm, like the following two paragraphs?
I consider that a friendly amendment.
Yeah, I'll propose it as friendly. Probably not super important, but it doesn't hurt, I don't think.
Commissioner Felsenthal.
Very similar. Yeah, also a very minor alteration proposal. Under the be it further resolved towards the bottom regarding considering altering the number of general travel lanes, I'm wondering if it may be helpful to be a little more explicit and say to consider reducing the number of general travel lanes.
I don't see how they would increase them, so that seems like a friendly amendment to me as well.
I appreciate that point, though, Commissioner Felsenthal, because altering could mean just curb cuts or bulb outs or something like that. I mean, not curb cuts, bulb outs, things like that.
So should we say then, in order to be inclusive of that, should we say altering and or reducing, so that we can also be inclusive of curb cuts and other stuff?
Yeah, either works well. Yeah, I'm fine keeping it as is if you think it would be fine. It would be considered inclusive of that. So I don't think there's a need to add reducing if you think that would be explicit.
I consider it a friendly amendment, and I think it would be good to be explicit about it.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Commissioner Felsenthal, Commissioner Falaschini, for accepting those. Are there any other commissioners with questions or discussion items? Anybody from the community, do you have any questions on this resolution? Kristen Barton.
So I was just, Jake, I sent this to Megan, these series of emails with Circe Torruelas from DDOT about the circulator expansion. And I'm not sure if Megan sent those to you or not, but I just pulled that up and I just sent it to you, but I know you haven't read it yet. But she did clarify one thing in her email about the circulator expansion. And let me see if I can find it here. She said that they reviewed the current 2020 draft transit development plan, or TDP, and the 2017 and 2014 TDPs, and they found no record of sidewalk widths being a factor in decisions regarding the route alignment or stop locations in any of these documents. Both stop locations mentioned above would be within walking distance of destinations in Adams Morgan. However, she did say that if there are particular stop locations that people would suggest, they'd be happy to review those as part of the planning effort. So the circulator expansion is currently not scheduled because they need to purchase more buses and they need to have bus garages to house them, which they don't currently have enough space for that. So, so we sent back some route stop suggestions back to Circe and the DDOT team working on the circulator. So take a look at that. I won't spend any more time on it here, but just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kristen. So Commissioner Falaschini, are you fine with the suggestions and the taking them as friendly amendments?
I am, yes.
Great. So if there's no more discussions or questions, then let's bring it to a vote. All those in favor of the resolution in support of the streetscape improvements on U Street between 16th Street and 18th Street, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay. And any abstentions? Thank you. That passes 7-0. Next up on our PZT portion of our agenda is consideration for a special exception at 2329 Champlain Street. Commissioner Faulkner, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, so this is a consideration of several special exceptions, or a special exception on several counts, as Commissioner Clem mentioned. I think if the folks who are here to present could raise their hand so Gordon could promote. I know there's several people. I'll let the applicant do most of the presentation. I'll just mention that we had an extensive discussion in our Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee meeting last month, and we voted 3-0 in support of recommending it to the full ANC. So I think that is all. And then Kairos, I will let you get started.
Hi, Kairos, you're muted, and then it looks like we need to get Michael Dyer and Shane Detman as presenters, please.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. It's good seeing you again. As you mentioned, we did about an hour-long presentation, or might have felt like an hour, might have been a little less than that, where we went through the project in full detail and answered a lot of questions. Michael Dyer is my client. He's the developer for the project. Shane Detman is also with Holland and Knight. He's our land use planner. What I will do quickly is just do a quick 2-3 minute run through our slides. Again, and John Edwards is our architect with Bonstra Hairside. I will do a quick run through of the slides, and that this is not intended to not cover anything, but I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. Let's start with slide 2, Shane, and I'll particularly focus on some of the changes that we've made since we were last in front of you. This is essentially a reapproval of an application that was approved in 2006. The BZA approved this project at 50 feet, 2.66 FAR, and we're between 31 to 33 units. And in order to achieve that design, we need relief from the FAR, height, lot occupancy, and court requirements. Next slide, please. So I think you're all very familiar with this site. It's, if you're looking at image 2 and image 3, it's a 2-story, in quotes, historic looking building that's been there for quite some time. Shane, if you could skip to slide 6, please. So just to point out some of the changes that we made when we were last with you commissioners, there are a couple questions. One was the allocation and distribution of the inclusionary zoning units. We have 7 units, and when we last met, they were primarily on the first and second floors. We have now equally dispersed those throughout the building. So we have 2 on the first floor. Next slide, please. 3 on the second floor, 1 on the third floor. Next slide, please. And 1 on the 5th floor. So now each floor of the building has a affordable inclusionary unit. I would add, as you know, when the project was initially approved in 2006, we were not subject to inclusionary zoning, so there were 0 affordable housing units at that time. The other important change, Shane, if we could go back to slide 6, please. I think Commissioner Clem might have asked this, or I know it came up, and the question related to parking and specifically electric EV charging. We now, it's probably hard to see, but we now have installed or showing equipment that would be able to charge 7 vehicles. So that's an important change to our plan. That's a direct response to what the commission asked us for the last time. And if we scroll to the right, there was a question about what's happening along the public space on Champlain Street. And we are reconfirming that we are closing those 2 existing curb cuts, improving that sidewalk to current DDOT standards. And as a result of closing those curb cuts, you essentially pick up 2 on-street parking spaces that will go back and become available for the public. Those are really the main changes to the plan since we last met. Shane, if we could jump to maybe just an elevation so that folks can be reminded of what our building looks like. Again, this is an elevation of our building. We're 50 feet tall, which is essentially the same exact height of the building to our north, which I believe is called the Morgan, and the building to our south is a little higher than that. So from our perspective, the building, both in terms of height and density, fits completely within the character of Champlain Street. We have a bunch of slides. I'm not going to go through the slides. I'm happy to pause there and answer any questions. And if I need to get to a slide to help answer a question, I can do that. But we're happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you. I'm definitely excited to see that distribution of the IZ units throughout the building. I think that's great. And the charging stations is also good. And the remediation of the sidewalk is excellent too. So thank you very much. Commissioners, are there any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Falaschini.
Thanks so much. I've already taken up a lot of time and space this evening, so I won't belabor this, but I just wanted to say thank you very much. And the only other thing that I didn't notice is the inclusion of a 3-bedroom family housing unit. So if you could consider that moving forward, that would certainly be appreciated for the community.
Understood.
Commissioner Wood.
Yeah, just quickly, just so there's multiple people saying the same thing. Agree with that. 3-bedroom. I mean, obviously just a like tiny little bit of the deeper problem, which is just not enough units for people to grow large families at an affordable rate in DC, but hopefully, you know, small chunks in this neighborhood can be a good start.
Any other questions or discussion items from commissioners? Commissioner Faulkner.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. And then I guess also if you want to show, I guess maybe the slide just outlining the areas of relief, or just for the commissioners who weren't able to attend the meeting, just so it's clear for folks. I know people have had the documents, but
Commissioner Faulkner, I'm sorry, it's a little hard to hear you. Yes.
I think what she said is, can we share the slide that lists and identifies the areas of relief?
Yes.
And I don't know if we lost Mr. Detman. He's got the slides.
Oh, got it.
Oh.
Okay. Well, then we can certainly return to that when hopefully he's able to get back.
I'm happy to say it, but I think showing it is what you want to see. Happy to show it. but I'll just say it until he gets back on. So we're asking for a special exception to have an FAR of 2.66, whereas 2.16 is permitted. So it's an increase of 0.5. We're asking for a special exception to have a 50-foot building height. I would add that this relief, again, is the same exact relief that was approved for this project in 2006, and is the same relief that was granted for our building to the north in terms of FAR relief and height relief. In addition, the permitted lot occupancy is 60%. The site now is improved with an existing building that occupies about 95.8% of the site. So technically we need relief to exceed the lot occupancy, although I would add that our new construction is only 83%. So we need lot occupancy relief at the upper levels of the building. And we need what's called closed court relief. There's essentially an open space between our building and our property line, which is defined by zoning as a closed court. It has to have a certain area, and we're slightly off in terms of the closed court area requirement. So those are the 4 special exceptions that we're seeking relief for.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion items from commissioners? Mr. Freeman, have the property taxes been paid? Apparently the current balance is quite high, $362,261.08.
Sure, I'll start and then I'll let Mr. Dyer chime in. I think as we articulated at our last meeting, we've been paying the normal property taxes as long as they've owned the site. We were assessed with what's called a vacant and blighted penalty, because if you're looking at it, you would think the site is vacant and blighted, but in fact, we're actually in the process of doing a lot of work. So once those penalties were assessed, my client has appealed those penalties, which certainly is permissible. And fortunately, I think we've had some success. Those what's showing now will be adjusted at some point, and we intend to pay to reduce the amount of the property taxes. So we, as I think Mr. Dyer said, we have no problem with paying what the correct amount of property taxes are for the site.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in and add to what Kyra said. We have actually had success dealing with DCRA over the last couple of weeks. We had one reduction so far. We made a payment of $22,000 on Monday to include the bid taxes. We expect that back and forth with DCRA to continue over the next couple of weeks. And we expect this issue to be a non-issue very soon. So I'm really happy with the progress we've made over the last couple of weeks.
Thank you. Anybody from the community have another question? Are there any other discussion items from the commission? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation and thank you for your time. Okay, commission, now we'll vote on consideration of the request for a special exemption at 2329 Champlain Street Northwest, BZA case 20-584. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. And any abstentions? Thank you. That motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And so that brings us to the end of the agenda. So I will call this meeting to a close. Thank you very much and have a great rest of